happens when the audience focuses on something entirely different?
There are as many ways of telling that story as there are stars in the universe.
To truly be in love and find someone, find the right person, you have to be able to recognize them and recognize truth. But you can't recognize truth if you can't discern reality itself.
You all to the Royal Stag Barrel Select Shots for Select Conversations, where I want to explore the art of storytelling with filmmakers like yourself and really uncover how to make select choices for the best of cinema. And with all the Royal Stag Barrel Select Shots that I have watched, I truly believe that every one of them reflects a choice, and a very select choice, which focuses on depth over noise, which focuses on cinematic storytelling. And they've all just stayed with me. Today, we'll dive into discussions with some of cinema's most discerning voices about 2 recently released short films and 1 upcoming one that I can't wait the audience to see. I've personally already had a preview. Drum rolls to welcome Dibakar Banerjee, Rishav Kapoor at these select conversations. I'm so incredibly excited to be chatting with all of you about your individual shots. We'll start with you, Dibakar sir. Badminton is so uniquely filmed and created, and I watched it 3 times over because I just wanted to catch every little thing that I think that you wanted to convey to the audience in that film. How do you know that the story, and how do you as the director know that this story was worth telling? And how did you stumble upon wanting to tell the themes that Badminton covers?
So first of all, I didn't. We kind of, me and Nona Uppal kind of only figured out our way as we were on our way. And the credit goes to Malvika. You called me and said, look, you've got this budget and you've got this character and do what you want. And this has to be a short, and this has to be a this kind of rough duration. So it was like a clean slate. It was like an opportunity, and it was like a challenge, all 3 rolled up into one. This is your canvas. You've got this guy, our bartender. So I called up Anubhav, and I think both of us share a common streak of insanity between us. We both of us recognize that we are not really sane, and we're just acting, pretending to be sane. So we got together and we started with this premise called man walks into the bar. So what happens in a bar? The bar has a bartender, so man walks into a bar, and it started from there. And I really wish Anubhav was part of this, call today. He couldn't be. He is, busy in London, and I think he would remember to a greater detail how it started. But it started off as simply as a man walks into a bar, and that's exactly what happens in the film. A man walks into a bar and then things happen. From there onwards, it just kept, it was collaborative, it was spontaneous, and we just kept riffing off of each other, and things happened.
Dibakar sir, I loved what you said about a man walks into a bar, almost like a creative writing prompt. How do you flesh out the canvas, and how do you paint after that point on? And do you like the fact that you have this prompt to work off of?
Well, I guess I like the analogy of Anubhav and I turning into our versions of AI and responding to the prompt. So we kind of, man walks into a bar. What kind of a man? Who is he? Why has he walked into a bar? Obviously, he's walked into a bar for a drink, but everybody walks into a bar for a drink. So what's so special? So maybe he's walked into a bar not knowing that it's a dry day. If it's a dry day, then why is the bar open? The bar is open because there is an actor or somebody over there who's not really a bartender, but is using the bar for that day for some specific reason. But only he knows that, and the man who walks into the bar doesn't know that. And the man who has walked into the bar wants a drink, but he doesn't really want a drink. He wants a drink while he is doing something else. And the bartender, who's not really a bartender, doesn't want to give him a drink, but gives him a drink or may give him a drink. But actually, he's not there to give a drink. He's there to do something else. And so what happens is that now you have a situation where two people who are looking at each other with expected roles, but are anything but expected in terms of what they are doing that day and at that moment there. They are also not telling each other what they really are. And it gets revealed in the story. They are hiding from each other. That gets revealed in the story. And so you have this very interesting situation which can be spun off in any direction, because there are people who are trying to hide things from each other while trying to show something else. And they are also, their motives are not matching.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the classic, as I call it, plot generator. So it's like, when a nuclear plant goes critical, it reaches critical mass. What it means that from there onwards, it'll keep on sort of, getting into nuclear fission again and again and again and again. It's a cycle. So when you take certain characters and if you have their biographies in your heads, and when you place what they know about each other and match them and mismatch them, what you get is a spontaneous and continuous plot machine. Of course, you need to come back and keep checking and say that, is this what you really want to say? So that's how it started.
It's so interesting to hear your process and how everything happened in a sequential manner. These questions that you were almost throwing at each other, and you have your answers. But
Sorry to interrupt you, not really sequential. It's only in hindsight
that it feels sequential.
In reality, it was as fragmented, as parallel, as blank, and as frustrated and as exciting as anything can be. So it was not sequential, it was random. And I think in some interview, Anubhav said that it became the most random when I wanted a dinosaur in the film, or a T-Rex in the film. So
It just became such a metaphor, though. I mean, it became so symbolic of the entire film that I think it tied everything together towards the end. Which leads me, I think, to my next question before I move towards Rishav. I really want to know the way that you're describing your process. It's obvious that you're keeping some themes in mind when you're making this short. You're obviously wanting the audience to take away some themes. What happens when the audience focuses on something entirely different? Does it really matter to you that they take away the exact thing that you intended for them to take away? Or is your work done when the shot is released and you're like, make of it what you want? How does that process work for you?
It wouldn't be good if they walked away with just one thing, because nothing is one thing. Everything is many things.
Yeah.
So it's better if they walk away with a sequence of meanings or things in their heads which you may intend or you may not intend, but which they are connecting. So it's better if they are not mapping one-on-one on what you're doing. It's better if they go off from that, for me.
That's so interesting. That almost leads to conclude that there is no right and wrong in how you're taking a shot away from you. And whatever you're taking away is what you're taking away. That's your frame of reference.
Right and wrong there ain't. Boring and entertaining there is. Yeah.
No, for sure. That is undeniable as an audience. I'd love to pivot a question towards Rishav. Rishav, your film dives into the space that I think everyone is so fascinated with right now. It's modern day dating. It's the reality of how choice obsessed dating has become. And I'm really curious, what drew you towards the theme of this project, especially as you mentioned that it was filming almost 2 years ago. What were the themes and what were the things that inspired you to kind of explore this particular concept within the film?
So I came on board as a director, and it's Chaitanya's work as a writer and his, genius that that created the script. And I truly think like writing is a creative art and direction is interpretive. For me, what I was trying to balance with both of these was a very like internal, authentic experience of what modern day dating is, with the external that we created and the world that we created, which doesn't exist. So to balance those out and allow it to feel authentic while delving in this very artificial world, I think that was the big challenge for us. It was really interesting fleshing this out in the context of a virtual date, because that is what like reality feels. It feels like reality is crumbling before our eyes. And I think everyone keeps talking about how we're in the Matrix, it's all a simulation, and it truly does feel that way. And that's what this film was meant to convey, that it's difficult to discern what reality is, from artifice. And it is a form of insanity as well. Like even here, you can't tell what's real and what's not, and that world crumbles before you, and that's what happens in our film. uh, I think it's a great human challenge. It's what every religion has tried to confront and explain the nature of our reality, and to truly be in love and find someone, like find the right person, you have to be able to recognize them and recognize truth. But you can't recognize truth if you can't discern reality itself, and that's the kind of premise that I went with for the film, where Shreya's character Arpita is looking for love and finds Vinay, and seems to think she's found the right person, but it's all a mask. It's all not real. And when it crumbles before her eyes, so does her prospects on love. And then you have to rebuild. So it's like every time you're going on a date, you're trying to reconstruct a reality, both of you, who you are, who the external world is, and then dealing with another person, another human being at the other end of that who's doing the same thing.
I also found it incredibly interesting, as you mentioned, your perceptions of reality and what reality actually is. And there's this one, the moment when suddenly the VR world fades off and the glasses come off and the reality is just that compound. I want to understand what were the factors that you were essentially keyed on displaying through the differences in environments between those two realities. We have this one old restaurant vibe where there's a lot of like flavor and there's a lot of cinematic like fervor, and then you enter into a completely different cinematographic landscape which is dull, dark, and barren. Were those obvious choices to connote the metaphors of how we expect love to look like in our heads, and when we're confronted with the actual reality of love in modern day dating, it's rather bleak and it's rather gray, if I were to put it that way?
Well, a big part of that is the nostalgia that gets tied in invariably with romance, and it feels like true romance and true love belong to a different time that we can almost quite like grasp, but it's just out of our grasp, and that's why we have to recreate it. We have to recreate the feeling of a community, the feeling of being in this little that was an auntie bar, which is during prohibition, but you have a community, you have other people there, you have life. And modern day dating just feels like death. It's empty, it's gray, nothing is real, nothing is really there. It's just you and the other person, and you construct this in your mind's eye. So when you're with someone who you truly vibe with, when you're with someone who you truly connect with, it's like reality opens up, and you get a glimpse into what the world was, but it isn't that way anymore. And I think that's what I wanted to convey, and hopefully did.
I also really want to talk about the ending, and I want your perspective as a director. Um, One could say that it ends on a bleak note, that this is just the way reality is, that this is the fate of the modern world dating. But I don't know, took away some amount of optimism from it, that you go through that experience, you realize that this is the way that you're looking at the world of dating, and you come out almost learning, okay, I need to approach this in a very different way. Do you think that there was some optimism that you were trying to connote with the ending, or is it just like a harsh and a hard reminder of modern day reality of dating, with like, do we expect there to be nothing better that happens with the way that the things are right now?
Well, like the rest of the film, it's balancing dualities of both optimism and pessimism. I tend to be a very optimistic person, So I don't see it as bleak. She comes out of this date where you think she's been completely crushed by, getting ditched at a date, but next movie stars Jim if he's single. And it was funny, but she feels bad, but she isn't defeated. Life goes on. Someone else enters the Lonely Hearts Club. And I think it's really up to the viewer to discern for themselves whether they see it as bleak or not. I certainly don't. I hope that things go on. You just gotta stay brave in the face of it. And she's on her feet at the end. She isn't weeping. She isn't sobbing. I hope that in whatever world Arpita lives in, she finds her one.
That's so incredible to hear. And now I'd love to open a question to the both of you, and I'd love to hear Dibakar sir and then maybe Rishav. I'd love to know, what is it about a story that stays with you long after the credits roll? Like, what's that one defining factor? What are some themes that kind of stick with you as a viewer, and what are some of these stories that have stayed with you for like long, long after you watched them? If you could just give me some of those examples.
For me, it's always a character I can relate to and hold on to and think about in either moments of happiness or difficulty. Like one of my favorite characters is Rocky, the classic underdog, and I think it's long after you've forgotten the plot of the film and the cleverness of the twists and turns, a character's authenticity remains with me. So that's what I always think back and remember characters. I never really think back and remember plot points. Also, because I tend to forget all the plots. Like while you're watching a film, plot is great, the twists and turns, the look and feel. That's all important, but it's always the heart and soul of the character the hero that'll remain with me.
So, as a director, is establishing relatability with an audience really core to you? Is that something that you yourself really want to ensure happens with the audience?
You can't try it. Like you can't go out trying to make a character relatable. You just got to make the character authentic, and then the viewers will decide whether it's relatable or not.
That's so true. Love to hear from you as well, Dibakar sir.
Well, actually, Rishabh has said pretty much, what I would have said. So, and I think most directors who are trying to not to pander, but to sort of, kind of come out and say what they have to say, like Rishabh and hopefully me, we feel the same way, more or less, all of us. And to your second question, that when I watch a film, what do I look forward to? Is that I'm not really looking for anything except to be, how shall I put it, triggered in a positive way. I mean, how to sort of, something in a film, and I'm not really looking for a theme in a film. I mean, some of my most guilty pleasures are watching absolute badass action thrillers. So I'm like looking for a trigger that unleashes a series of meanings for me, or a series of fantasies for me, or a kind of a cascade of wishes, hopes, fantasies, dream states, meanings. Depends on the film. I mean, if I'm watching Michael Haneke, so then I will it'll be meanings and thoughts. If I'm watching Michael Bay, then it'll be like fantasy. So depends on, what unfolds and what triggers from which film.
Absolutely. And I'd also love to know from you, I mean, what is that one advice you'd give to any budding shots director to establish themselves in this place? What is it that they could do that makes them different, stand out, stand apart? What would be that one piece of advice that you would give to them?
One of the things that I want to tell anybody is that films are like dream states. It never happens in real life that I'm here and then I cut to my house. But that's exactly what happens in a film. And that's how it's been happening for 100 years.
Yeah.
We go from one place to the other, and we cut out the time in between, and we go for the only necessary, and somehow a story happens. So I think films are closest to dream states, and filmmakers should try and see how they can maximize the dreamlike character of a film to get the audience really into the skin of it. And the other advice is that there could be one story, but there are as many ways of telling that story as there are stars in the universe, basically infinite. So you have to find which telling of this particular story is your tell. So, and mostly we are influenced by, how shall I put it, social traditions, which include market traditions, which include popular choices or what goes by popular choices. You think that this story can be only told in this way, but that's not the reality. The reality is that every story has got infinite ways of telling, and you have to find your way. That's the only.
I love how your advice really gives a budding director the freedom to really explore and like the freedom to tap into their own mind. And I think that's something that everyone in the creative fields really needs. And I would love to know, Rishabh, from you as well, what was like one major learning that you took away from this experience as a director of a short? And what is it that you would further implement in your future projects? That one piece of learning?
I think to be very true to your vision, very true to yourself, and to really believe in yourself almost maniacally. Uh, it's very important to see your film through and just have that conviction, because I feel like if you ever compromise, you're never really going to forgive yourself for having done that and having compromised the story in any way. And in a more practical sense, to balance that with practical realities of days of shoot and budgets. So to plan it all out carefully, balance these two like opposite ends of the spectrum, and then just go into it with like complete and absolute conviction, because no matter what kind of story you're telling, whether it's just a short film or a massive commercial blockbuster, whatever it is, you really just got to believe in it, and everyone else is going to look to you for direction. That's your job. So you can't afford to double think or to hesitate ever.
That sounds incredible. And I love the notes to balance as the balance between before optimism and certain cynicism, and then the balance here between managing two very different aspects of filmmaking. That was so incredible to hear. I'd love to like segue into a quick rapid fire where I would ask you quick questions, one word, one line response, whatever suits you best. One word that you would use to describe your short other than the title, of course.
Drunk.
And Rishabh.
Romantic.
Sorry, romantic. Oh, wow, I love that. Okay, your favorite dialogue or moment from the short?
I've seen you somewhere.
Going through the portal.
Love that. Okay, one thing you really want the audience to take away.
I want the audience to take away that Vijay Maurya can scream as effectively as any other woman. That's the most anti-sexist portrayal of a screen that has ever been there on the small screen.
Be authentic with yourself.
And finally, actually not finally, this is the second last question. The next theme you want to explore in any project that you're feeling very drawn to.
I'm currently exploring identity.
What it means to be a hero.
And I will end this with I'd love for you to describe, maybe in one line each, what makes Badminton and Next Please select? What about these shots make them the select choices for you as filmmakers and for the actors that acted in these films?
What makes Badminton at least select is that producers gave the directors real and meaningful freedom.
What makes Next Please select is that we had complete freedom to do what we wanted, and hopefully we've created a truly unique world for you to step into.
That's so incredible to hear. And I really want to thank both of you, Dibakar sir, Rishav, for joining us and giving us splendid insights into these two shots. I've personally watched both of them multiple times, and I really enjoyed every single part, from the cinematography to the direction to the writing. I am absolutely floored and personally really enjoyed both the shots. And thank you so much for putting out this into the world. And thank you so much for being on board with us. And we will see you in the next one.